Hey, welcome back. It's a quiet night here in New York, the kind where the city's usual hum feels distant, and I'm looking out my window at a skyline of electric stars. And it makes me think about another city, another kind of night, over a century ago. A city draped in humidity and the scent of magnolias and river mud, where the dark wasn't just an absence of light, but something that felt alive. And on those nights, the people of New Orleans would lie awake, listening, not for the distant call of a steamboat or the first notes of a trumpet drifting from a club. They were listening for the sound of their own back door being pried open. They were listening for the footsteps of a man who came not for their money, but for their lives. A figure who would become one of America's most bizarre and terrifying bogeymen, the Axeman of New Orleans. I'm Ibnul J. Farabi, and this is Underworld Kings, the rise and fall from Light Not Studios. Tonight, we're stepping into the jazz age fever dream of 1918 and 1919, into a city gripped by a panic so strange, it could only happen in New Orleans. Our story doesn't start with a murder, but with a letter. On March 13, 1919, the New Orleans Times-Picayune published a note they'd received, written in a crude, almost childish hand. It was addressed, chillingly, to a esteemed mortal. The writer claimed to be a demon from hell, and he laid out his terms. He would visit the city again the following Tuesday night, and he would spare every home where jazz was being played. But the houses that were silent, that did not have a jazz band in full swing, those he would visit with his axe. The letter was signed, simply, the Axeman. Now, you might think this was the ranting of a madman, to be dismissed. But New Orleans didn't have that luxury, because for over a year, the Axeman had been very, very real. His reign began in the early hours of May 23, 1918, in the home of an Italian grocer, Joseph Maggio. Joseph and his wife Catherine were found in their beds, their skulls crushed by an axe that had been left in the room. A panel in the back door had been chiseled out, a signature that would soon become a mark of dread. The killer took nothing. Over the next year, a pattern emerged. He targeted Italian-American grocers and their families, almost exclusively. He attacked at night, using the chiseled panel method to enter. He used an axe or a straight razor, often found at the scene. And he left behind a city drowning in paranoia. The police were baffled. They pursued leads from the mafia to a lone, deranged individual. They arrested suspects, only to have another attack occur while the suspect was in custody. The violence was brutal, intimate, and seemingly random to anyone not in the Italian community. Fear became a physical presence. Hardware stores sold out of axes, not as weapons, but because people wanted to lock them away. Lumber flew off shelves as homeowners boarded up every window and door. And on the night of the Axeman's promised visit, March 19, 1919, the city chose to believe the letter. From dusk until dawn, New Orleans erupted in sound. In every neighborhood, in homes that normally would have been silent, pianos pounded, trumpets blared, and phonographs screeched with the hot jazz of King Oliver and others. It was a citywide seance of survival, using music as a shield. And it worked. No attack was reported that night. The Axeman, true to his word, or perhaps amused by the spectacle, had passed them over. That night is what fascinates me most. Not just the killer, but the city's response. Here was a community under siege, not by an army, but by a ghost story that happened to be true. And they fought back with the one thing that was their soul's own language, music. They weaponized their culture. In a way, they collectively decided to believe in the myth, to play along with the monster's rules, because the rational world of police and investigations had failed them. It's a profound moment where folklore and reality collide, and for one night, folklore won. But the terror wasn't over. The attacks resumed, sporadically, culminating in what is believed to be the Axeman's final act of violence in October 1919. And then he vanished. As suddenly as he appeared, the chiseled panels and the axe blows stopped. The case grew cold, frozen in time with a handful of theories, but no definitive answers. Was he a single killer? Some historians have pointed to a man named Joseph Mumford, who was later shot by the widow of one of the victims. Others suggest copycats, or a wave of anti-Italian hysteria given form. We'll never know for sure. As an engineer, I'm trained to look for patterns, for the logical through line in a system. The Axeman case defies that. The pattern of victims is clear, but the motive is opaque. The evidence was there, but it led nowhere. The system of justice was completely overloaded by the sheer, supernatural weirdness of it all. And as a storyteller, that's what pulls me in, the gaps. The spaces between the facts where the true horror and the true humanity actually live. The horror is in the image of a family sleeping behind a door they've nailed shut themselves. The humanity is in an entire city, from millionaires in the Garden District to immigrants in the French Quarter, all playing the same ragged, joyful, defiant tune into the early hours, just to feel safe. The Axeman didn't just take lives, he altered the psyche of a city. He embedded himself in its history as permanently as any voodoo queen or pirate king. He became a dark note in the chord of New Orleans itself, a dissonance that you can still feel if you listen for it. He's a reminder that sometimes, the monsters we create in our collective fear are more powerful and more enduring than the man with the axe ever was. Thanks for listening to this episode of Underworld Kings. If you found this story as compelling as I do, please share the show with a friend. It helps us more than you know. For more deep dives into history's most fascinating shadows, visit our producers at Light Not Studios at lightnotstudios.com. Until next time, stay curious. And maybe, just maybe, keep a little music playing.